What the study would be is you would take like a very representative sample of black and white people and actually say like, does one of these people have like an innately larger muscle mass, or do they have like a bigger heart or like bigger lungs, or do they like things like that? That's what you would have to go to.
But you can't go by that because, like I said, it's on average. Like obviously you're gonna find
I just said representative sample. Do you even know when the Great Divergence started?
I'd probably go back like 500-600 years. Like
okay, which is a very
Romans,
small
Greeks.
which is a very small part of human history. Wait, the Romans and Greeks were not 500 years ago. Because I took an IQ difference of 15 points between white populations, you suddenly become very hesitant to say that it's to do with genetics.
No, it could be. No, I said it could be. It could be genetic. Yeah.
It took you a very long time to get there. So you think there's an innate genetic IQ difference between Dutch and English people?
I'm like, yeah, it could be a genetic difference.
Really?
It could be.
Okay,
yeah.
so it could be the case. This is what you're giving me right now.
Yes.
It could be the case that English and Dutch people have an innate IQ difference of 15 points.
Yes.
Dude,
Why couldn't it be?
you're really fucked up.
Yo, what's up?
My white friend.
Very white. All right.
I
So
hope
what's
so.
the argument here? I don't know. I don't know if you can argue this point.
I want to know what your point is, because you keep asking rhetorical questions. Just make a point and we'll go from there.
Hold on, I can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Hello?
You hear me now? I can see my face
keep
turning
cut-
green. Despite
You keep like cutting out. I can only hear like every other word.
Oh no. And you sound very clear on here. 1 second.
All right, I heard that clear.
Okay. Might just be a volume thing. We'll go from there.
All right, that's good.
Okay. Yeah, just, I don't know. We'll start with a claim and let's go. Just give me a claim. What are you actually trying to say?
All right. So I guess with the NBA thing, because that's the one you jumped on.
Mhm.
I mean, it's obvious that some people just have, some races, we'll say, especially in the U.S., they just have an advantage genetically at different things.
You can be
So you
specific
look at
with
like
what
the
kind of
NBA,
people.
it's 75% black,
Mhm.
and even though they're only 13% of the population.
Mhm.
And now, why is that? Why are they so overrepresented?
You want me to suggest some reasons?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. One can be that if you're black, if you have sports aspirations in the US, if you're white, you're probably going to have like quite a lot of options. You can do a much wider range of sports. You can do golf, you can do soccer, you can do hockey, you can do equipment heavy sports that black people are less likely to afford. Whereas if you're black, your opportunities are very limited.
That's not necessarily
You are
true
basically
with like football, though.
with what,
I mean,
American football?
takes the most equipment out of all those sports, and blacks dominate football too. 70%
Okay,
are in the NFL.
okay, so NFL, but again, you can. There's like a lot more like scholarship opportunities for black people when it comes to NFL. So, again, and in that case, the equipment is provided by schools. I'm pretty sure. So, if you're talking about these two sports in particular, it's like basketball and American football, and this is in America. This is where this happens. Then, I guess the point would be that you've got a much more limited set of options for an average black person in the US, which is why they will focus in a more concentrated way on things like basketball, NFL, or like rap music, right? Because the chances of doing it on the side while you study to be a lawyer are a lot lower.
Yeah, but you're overrepresented. Like you think that like just white people, every single white person has this opportunity to be a lawyer. But there's more white people in poverty than black people in America.
That's because there are more white people than black people in poverty.
Why wouldn't those more white people that are in poverty just try a little harder in sports, and maybe, then they'll become millionaires doing a sport? You know what I'm saying?
But then you're
just coming off with this assumption that like, oh, every white person can become a lawyer or a doctor or something.
Mhm.
But that's obviously not true.
Okay, first of all, the reason the fact that there are more white people than black people is because there are more white people than black
You
people. That's
keep
why they're
cutting
more in
out. Is there
poverty.
any other like server you can go on to or
I don't think
something? Because
so.
like every other word is like blocked out.
Let me turn off something. 1 second.
Okay. I just
Um,
want to hear what you're saying.
of course.
Yes.
What about that?
All right. So that's working so
Or
far.
that? There's an
Yeah.
attenuation switch that was on. Okay. Hang on. So, like I said, there are quite a few factors when it comes to cultural expectations because, like, people will tend to, follow the paths of their fathers and that kind of thing. And in media, it's usually expected at this point that black people will do like American football and basketball, and they won't do other things like, I don't know, even things that like soccer doesn't really require much equipment, but that's not massively overrepresented by black people. And again, if you were trying to make the black argument, then you would probably have to explain why every other top country in international basketball is white. Why is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9, and 10 not African countries?
Well, I like to go to the United States because the United States is a perfect example because it's a place where like a lot of the black population actually play these sports like football, basketball. I mean, like in Africa, do you ever see them playing basketball? I mean,
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
where?
It's not as if these countries aren't exposed to international media and culture. Yes, they are. These are countries that have cities, like urban environments. Yes. Like, yeah, they have basketballs in Africa, right? And they have football. They
Well,
do
yeah, of
have
course, but
teams. They all have teams
like
actually. Like,
national teams.
yeah, they're on the list. Yeah, they have teams. Yeah. They have national they pretty much all have national soccer teams as well.
Yeah, but why do you ignore the number one team,
I'm
the
not
United
ignoring it.
States?
I'm not ignoring it. It's just that you're not trying to make an American argument. You're trying to make a racial argument. You're trying to make an argument about black people. Most of the black people in the world, my friend, are in Africa. Why are they not also in the top table of basketball if it's a genetic thing? We're talking genetics and races, not countries.
Well, right. Well, genetics, because well, the reason you are correct when like the reason that black people pursue basketball and football in America is financial, obviously, but that doesn't take away from the fact that once they do pursue it, they have a genetic advantage the rest of the population.
They
I mean, you
pursue
can
it
just see
because
it
they
just
okay.
looking at the statistics, like the racial makeup of the NBA and the NFL.
Well, no, if you
It's
okay,
like obvious.
typically in by the rules of the Western Enlightenment, you wouldn't prove a genetic argument by looking at the players in a sports team. You would make a genetic argument. You would point to genes and phenotypes and dominant genes and things like that. You would go to that. Okay, so you are guessing by looking at black people in one country.
Yeah, but the country that rewards people the most for playing professional sports.
Okay, so now it's reward. That's so now one of the
No, no,
factors is
no, no,
reward.
no. See, it's their success is based on their their genetic attributes. Like it definitely helps them out.
So why doesn't this happen in soccer
Or
then?
else you still haven't given me a reason why 13% of the population is 75% of the NBA.
Yeah, it did. There's like cultural expectations and the fact that it's more likely to be the only option if you're black, whereas if you're white, it's one of many options. And also the fact that like I don't need to. By the way, I don't need to
More
prove
white
anything. By the
people,
way, I need to prove that it's. I just.
more white people play basketball and football, like in high school levels, at college levels.
Hmm. But again,
So
it's whether
how
or
does that
not.
make any sense?
It's whether.
If there's a bigger pool of white people that want that same opportunity to make millions of dollars playing in a professional sports league, then why isn't it like why aren't the like the percentages like exactly matched up to race? Like why isn't it like 60% white and then 13% black and
Okay,
then
I've already answered
whatever
this, but
20% Hispanic
I've
or
already answered this,
other?
but I'll do it again. It's because a combination of cultural expectations and cultural factors
But
would
what does that
contribute
mean?
to the levels
So you're
of
just pulling that out of your
input.
ass. I mean, you're saying that I'm pulling like the whole race, like the genetic argument out of my ass. But like you're
Mhm.
just saying, oh, the cultural expectation. I mean, white people want to be in the NBA too, and they want to be in the NFL also.
Do white
You know
people,
what I mean? So it has
do
nothing to
you
do with
think,
cultural, like what. So they're culturally pushed into these sports, so they automatically just succeed
okay,
at
do,
astounding, like disproportionate numbers. It makes no sense what you're saying.
do you think an average white person, an average black person, they both like playing basketball? Do you think both of these people will have the same number of alternatives they can do with their lives? Say they're both in poverty and they both want to get out of
Oh
poverty.
shit! You keep cutting out again. Hold on. Maybe if I can like listen to the stream, I can.
That might be difficult.
Listen to the stream. Uh,
Yeah?
all right, go
You
ahead.
hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you think, because you mentioned opportunities yourself, so I'm sure you would understand that you've got a white person and a black person who both play a bit of basketball. One of those people is going to have more alternatives to basketball and is more likely to pursue basketball on the side than the other one, correct?
No, I wouldn't
Really?
say that's correct, and I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, there's way more white people in poverty. So why wouldn't those white people want to better themselves and become millionaires playing professional
Because
sports?
white people
I mean,
still have more
those
avenues
low
out of
income
poverty than
white
black people
people
do.
also don't have many opportunities too. You just act like this, like, oh, you're white, you have all the opportunity in the world. When it's not the case. There's like twice as many white people in poverty than black people,
I
probably more actually.
never said that. What I said was, and you said this as well because of lack of opportunity, you said you probably accept that white people have more avenues out of poverty than black people do.
Well, no, not when I'm talking about
Really?
low income people. Yeah, of course not. Like when I'm talking about two, like a white person and a black person in poverty, how does the white person have more avenues out of it? They're both in the same exact situation.
Well,
They
apart
have
from
no
the,
money. They have nothing. They, of course, they want to fall back on sports and become a millionaire. Like the
do
the
you think, no, wait,
disproportionate
wait, 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 wait. At all income,
racism
no, no,
in
you're just
the
wrong. I'm
NBA
going to cut
doesn't
you out.
come
Like,
down to like.
you're just wrong. You're just wrong. White people in the UK, in the USA, at whatever level, will have a higher level of social mobility than black people.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know
on
if you're watching
average,
the
yes.
stream.
On
Even if you're in
average.
poverty, even if they're both in poverty, regardless, if they're both wealthy, if they're both in
Well, no,
poverty,
not no.
one
Now
will
you're
have more
just making
opportunity than
shit
the
up
other.
because that you're taking these like even if they're both in poverty, these two individuals will have the same exact. Dude, you're just going by averages.
No, this isn't by
There's no
averages.
like
This is
one
adjusted for each
specific
income
case you
rank.
can
No,
look
no,
at and be like,
this is
well, this
adjusted for
guy had the
income
exact
ranks.
same poverty as this guy. One was black, one was white, and look, this white guy he got to go to college for free, and this black kid, oh, sorry, he doesn't have any opportunity at all. Like that doesn't exist.
Are you looking at
You're
this?
just pulling that out of your ass
No, are
from
you,
like
what, are you
from
denying that the
studies,
research
and you
exists?
know what I mean.
How can it be from my ass if it's also from a study?
That's what I just said, though. No, but dude, I don't know. I don't even know what you're trying to say.
I'm trying
Honestly,
to say
you're
that
saying
for,
that a white person in poverty has it better than a black person in poverty.
yes, they have more opportunity to get out of poverty. Yes, they have higher social mobility. Yeah, yeah,
On average.
yes.
And
This
now,
is,
why is that? Racism.
yeah, there's
So
a
then,
number of
why do
reasons.
black?
Yeah.
So why do black people succeed so much more in like sports? I thought it was like a racist country and shit.
Because part of racism, believe it or not, is the assertion that black people are physically superior because by the same token that, for example, animals are physically superior. Has always been the case that white
Oh,
people
that's
have
a really racist point you just made.
considered black
Wow,
people to
I
be
can't I
physically
can't believe you
superior.
actually said that. But if you want to go with that, that's fine.
You
But
don't think
holy
that
shit,
happened? You don't think they used to do like the Mandingo fighting?
you're
Like the,
comparing black people to animals now, dude. Come on, we can be a little more serious
you
here.
got me. You got me. I'm getting clipped. You destroyed the
just
career. All right.
I don't get how you can
You
use
don't
that
think that's
argument
possible.
though
You
in
don't think it's
like in
possible
good
for someone.
faith.
You don't think it's possible for someone to think black people are physically and athletically superior, but also be racist.
Yeah, I don't get
You
I
don't think
don't
that's
get your
possible.
question.
You don't think it's possible.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah. Of
that
course
could be
you
the
could. Yeah,
case.
yeah, yeah. Like there's quite a few famous examples of people doing that. Yeah. So that's maybe why. Yeah, that's That's why there's a bit more conceivable social mobility in sports than there is in like anything else.
Yeah, but here's a question I want to ask. Like,
Hmm.
how come we can't recognize that maybe certain certain races have, on average, genetically certain strengths and weaknesses? Like, how is
We
that racist just to
actually
observe things?
We actually do that all the time. People study biological differences between different groups from different regions all the time. They tend to not use races because race is a very backwards and very underdeveloped way of looking at it. Because it turns out when you look at within a race, say the black race, there is more genetic variation within Africa than there is between Africa and the rest of the races. Like, so when you talk about a specific genetic predisposition in Africa to have sickle cell anemia, you realize that's not a black thing, that's a West African thing. And within West Africa, that's a specific part of West Africa. The same way, if you look at like running, that's you could call that a black thing, but you zoom in and it's actually not a black thing at all. It's a Kenyan thing. You look at basketball in
Yes, but
Africa
they're
right
all still
now,
black,
it's not a
right?
black thing, it's a
It
Senegalese
is a
thing.
black thing, though, in basketball.
But what would be more accurate, black or Kenyan? You could say it's a human
No,
thing.
I was
It's a
talking in
human thing.
basketball, but yeah. Well, listen, like Kenyans are black, right?
Hmm.
So that is a racial, like, genetic strength of theirs.
I'm asking you
I
if
mean,
it's
I
more
guess it's not
accurate
just
to say
because
the
that they're
region
black,
than the race.
but they are black and they are better at running than anyone else. So we can't recognize that they have a genetic um, strength in running. I don't get how that's like racist or anything. I
You would
like
say Kenyan though, because it's specifically for Kenyans,
sure,
not
but
black people,
when
right?
I say black in the United States, I'm
Okay.
just using the term black because that's how we call black people in the United States. We call them black people, or
Yeah,
it
so
used to
you
be
could say
African American, but now it's black. You know
you
what I
could say
mean?
well, so you could say it's not controversial to say that black Americans do exceptionally well at
Yes,
basketball. Okay. That doesn't prove it's
yes,
genetic though. There could be a
but
number of reasons because genetic and environmental always go hand in hand. Sickle cell anemia is both genetic and environmental. And you are going into like one of the most difficult like biological questions over whether or not something is innate or whether or not something has been environmentally shaped. That's why I think you probably have to the burden of proof in you is very high to prove that it's
it's
genetic.
not. Listen, it's not innate in every single instance. It's not like every single individual black
I
person
didn't
can
say
be
that,
this
even on
great basketball
average.
player. I'm saying on average,
Yeah.
they have the tendency to be genetically gifted athletically.
But you
And
would
there's
still
nothing
have to say
racist or
that
like crazy about that.
you would
It's
still
like
have to
it's
say
just obvious when you look at like the NBA, NFL, any of these like very athletic competitive leagues in the
so
United States.
you would still have to prove that this was genetically innate on average and not environmentally like
Well,
shaped
you can't
or
prove it
culturally shaped.
environmentally, just like I can't prove it genetically, right? So I'm gonna go with my assumption that wow, only 13% of the population is actually 75% of the NBA. That's crazy. That's awesome. That's
Right.
probably genetically involved there because it's just apparent across the board.
You don't think
You can just see it.
do you think the burden of proof for cultural trends is different from making a biological claim?
I think it's the same. Like
Really?
you can't prove to me that it's cultural. I mean, you've given some stuff,
You can
but
make connections, you
like
can look at data,
I
yeah?
rebut it. Like there's way more white kids playing basketball and football in like grammar school, high school, whatever, but they never make it to that like upper levels of like college and the NBA, NFL,
Why are
and it's
black people
because
not
that's
excelling in
based on
soccer then?
performance and
If it's
meritocracy.
okay, so if it's genetic then, would you say that soccer and basketball both demand like physical athleticism, right? Like that's the thing that makes you good at both those things. You have to be physically athletic. That's like the main thing,
Sure,
right?
but like
So why is the physically
in America,
athletically predisposed
basketball is way
group
more popular than soccer.
basketball is more popular than soccer for black people, right? But because white people play a lot of soccer. I'm asking
No,
about
I'm talking about in
domination.
America overall. For black and white people, basketball is just way more
Yeah,
popular.
but I'm asking you, okay, so but that doesn't matter. I'm asking you why black people are not also overrepresented in soccer.
In America,
Yeah.
because they don't make as much. They don't make as much as players in the NBA or in the NFL.
So
And
what
maybe
you
that's
just
a
did
sport
there,
that they gravitate to,
my
though.
friend,
Maybe that's a
I
sport they
love you.
gravitate
I
to.
love you. What you just did there, and to both of those questions, which you gave me
But yes,
cultural
I'm not
answers.
disagreeing with you
You
that
just
it's
gave me
like they
cultural
like it because it's
answers.
cultural. I'm saying that they reach those levels of 70% uh, in the NFL and 75% in the NBA because they are genetically gifted at that sport. You don't just become top of your game in a sport because you like it or because it's culturally relevant to you. You get there because of meritocracy and performing well in that sport.
So why are they not
Do you know what
also
I'm
why? But okay, so, assuming that he's like I don't know, black kids like can't get into the NBA, that still doesn't explain why they're not represented in soccer. White people are pursuing soccer at like a rate of that's pretty much proportionate.
isn't a lot of soccer also Hispanic? Well,
Um,
I guess that could be white too, but anyways, I don't want to get off topic with that. But you're correct that yes, the NBA and the NFL, black kids like to play uh, basketball and football more than they do soccer. On
mhm.
average, right? But the reason they get to the top levels and vastly disproportionately are in you know the NBA and the NFL is because they're genetically better on average. They just
Soccer is 78% white. Hispanic and Latino is only 7%. So that's disproportionate, isn't it? In America, America's less than 78% white, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's
This
what
is very
60
specific
something.
genetics. There's like they've got a basketball gene, but not a soccer gene. I don't know,
Well,
dude.
no, like I said, I conceded with you that like the cultural element they enjoy basketball and football better, which so do I. I mean, even everybody in America prefers basketball and football over soccer,
Mhm.
like most people do of all races. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
well that would
Except
still
maybe
mean
like
there'd be an equal
Spanish
number.
people.
That would still mean there'd be an equal proportion playing soccer. So you'd still expect a black overrepresentation if they were athletically superior. You know.
Well, no, I don't think so because, like I said, culturally they like to play basketball and football more.
So you
I
think
conceded that point to you
well,
that
white people like
yes,
to do that more as well,
culturally
don't they?
they do like that sport more than soccer. Yes,
So we've narrowed it
and
down from sports
actually the
to
reason maybe the
basketball in America. Uh,
loaner box. I think maybe the reason that white people are overrepresented in soccer
hmm.
is because they can't get into the NBA or NFL because there's too many black people because they're too
Yeah,
good. Hey, but you
transferable
ever think of
skills.
that one?
Yeah, you get to the age of 17 playing
Yeah,
playing basketball your entire life. And you're like, oh shit, I'll just become a professional soccer player with this transferable ability.
exactly. Because
That's a
I can't compete in the NBA.
that's a very
I
good
mean that
meme.
it's entirely
I
possible.
appreciate that, yeah, because that's how sports works. Yeah, that's an incredible meme. All right, so next, I wanted to ask. So, do you think does it upset you that like you couldn't, if you're in a biology class, right, and you want to talk about racial differences, which people in biology do, biologists study this shit all the time, and you come to them and say,
You do think
"Here's my
like
proposition."
races are real, right? Like
And no, I think races are
'cause
socially constructed. I think genes are real, and Kleins are like
genes.
more or less,
Okay,
but
okay.
yeah, genes
So
are real, but not racist. No,
like genes determine if somebody is black or white or Asian or whatever,
well,
right?
melanin, yeah.
Okay, okay. Go ahead
Well,
then.
not entirely
I
though,
just want to
because
make sure.
Obama is like 50% genetically white. So actually, no, there's no black.
Well,
Like
that he's that's
it's only
still
his skin
based on
color.
genetics. I mean, one white and one black guy make a mulatto. We used to call them. I guess they're mixed now.
Well, no, people would just call Obama black, don't they? They don't call him like mixed race or half white, do they?
Well, yeah, of course, he's the first black president, not the
Yeah,
first mixed president,
yeah.
which is interesting because it's like you get to just pick your race
Well,
depending on which
that's
one you want to be.
well, no, that's because race is because race is socially constructed. Yeah.
In that instance,
The
yes.
measurements we use are real. So this is how it works. It's like tall and short are not like real things, right? Because like a tall what? A tall building, a tall person, a tall child, a tall like old person. Like those are the social constructs. But the real thing is the centimeters and inches, right? That's what we mean when we
Height is
say
a real
races.
thing,
Yeah, that's what we mean. Like the measurement is a real thing, but tall and
right?
short and like roamy or thick around the hips or like
Yeah,
these are the social constructs. We decide
true,
what makes what.
but there is definite dividers between black and white. Like you can look at somebody and say they're black, and look at someone and say they're white. It's not like a objective or subjective kind of thing where, oh, that guy's tall. Well, he's not really that tall. He's only 6 foot. Look at this guy. He's 7 foot. There are like literal examples of a black person and a white person.
But the fact that you can look at that we tell by looking at them is the social construct. We're not looking at their genes. We're just looking at their skin. We're looking at one like signifier, which is why
we're looking
people
at
call
what their
Obama
genes
black.
produce
Well, that's
outwardly.
why. But that's why they call Obama black, right? Because we don't take into account his genetic makeup. Not really. With the fact that he's half white,
We wouldn't call him black if he had no black genes at all, correct?
It's not a black. It's melanin. It's not. There's not a black gene. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, African genes.
It's not even It's not even really like African gene. Okay. Yeah.
Well, they're genes from Africa. Right?
I mean, they could be from North Africa.
And they have an outward expression to them, right?
Yeah. So we're looking at gene expression. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good.
So that's a bit more, but that's very different from the idea that race is real.
See, like, okay, so you can say that yes, there's differences. Like, there's a black person, and that's made up of their genes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can just say from their genes that's what made them black. That's what we call black, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't you do the same thing and say like, well, maybe this race, it not only does it make them more melanated, but it also makes them better athletes. I don't get why that is impossible to like question.
It's because the evidence for it, like as soon as you remember that other countries in the world, as soon as you remember that other countries in the world exist, the evidence isn't there. Every country of every race dominates a different sport. It's not as like this is like
I mean,
you
the
can't
perfect
like
study is
so wait
America.
what's what the study would be is you would take like a very representative sample of black and white people and actually say like, does one of these people have like an innately larger muscle mass, or do they have like a bigger heart or like bigger lungs, or do they like things like that? That's what you would have to go to.
But you can't go by that because, like I said, it's on average. Like obviously you're gonna find
I just said representative sample
who can play basketball better than like a 5 foot tall black person.
But
that doesn't mean that on average that they're like way more athletic and more predisposed to be better at basketball.
Did I not just say representative? Did I not just say representative sample size, which means on average? That's the same. They mean the same thing.
Okay, but how big is the sample? Like we can do that study right now and just look at the NBA. That's what I'm saying.
That's
like,
not how you do a study. That's not how you do a study.
You know what I mean?
That's not how you do a study. You're selecting for like people who are at the top of their game in a sport. No, that's not how you.
Yes.
No.
It's a perfect study.
You would have to get.
It is the number one study to prove my argument is reality.
Why would you?
That's my study.
What you're gonna select a bunch? You're just gonna point to a bunch of black people who are in the NBA, the top of their sports game. No, you would go across the entire population.
75%. Sorry.
So
are black, and they're only 13% of the population.
So, out of interest, athletic. Can you be a bit more concrete than athletic? Do they have? Do black people have like? Are black people predisposed?
For a sec, say it again.
Are yours okay? What you would want to do is you would have to get a representative sample, a big sample of a bunch of randomly selected black and white people from all around the world, because black. Like the differences between East and West and South Africa are huge as well. So you'd have to get all that and then get just all the white people represented, all the black people represented, and then just say,
everyone. So all is there 7 billion of us.
No, a representative sample.
The representative sample is in the United States, dude. And it proves my point.
You would have to get like maybe 1,500 black Americans and 1,500 white Americans. Not just all NBA players, like just a representative sample.
But I mean,
you maybe throw in one basketball player, and you would have to show genetic predisposition
are in America.
Do you think it's maybe? Do you think
13% of them? Yet there's 75% of the league.
Do you
that
find
proves my point like over and over exponentially?
So what is it? Give me some. What specifically is it? Like, do they have higher muscle mass? Do they have like?
They're just
slower heart rates,
more explosive, faster on average. Yes.
Do you feel like
on average, bro?
Do you feel like
there's still white people in the NBA, right?
What?
There's still white people in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
So it's not all.
I know. I'm not saying that.
Yes, they have genetic advantages.
you need to prove that genetically. You can't just say, first of all, do you think athletic is a very useful, like, biological metric here? Just more athletic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Do you
of
feel like
course
you're
it
maybe
is.
being a bit, I don't know,
Maybe
conveniently broad?
powerful, fast.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
if you can
But
find me a
yes,
study that says that
athletic is
black.
a true thing you can see. I mean, there's
Okay,
NFL combines which measure your athleticism, your 40-yard dash, your bench press, your cone drill. I mean, it all represent your vertical leap.
well,
It
you'd
all
probably
represents
be better
key
getting this
points
from
of
like.
athleticism,
You'd probably be
and it's
better getting this
measurable.
from. You'd probably be better getting this from like youths, wouldn't you? Like young people, and actually measuring like their whether it's their muscle mass or anything else, rather than taking people who have
Well,
already
no,
trained and
not
asking
really.
them.
No, not youth, because you want to see like at the peak level, which is professional sports, which is the NFL, the
Okay,
NBA.
so why don't these biological studies exist? There are plenty of biological studies on intelligence. We can go there if you want, but why do these not exist for sports? Why?
Because it's just, well, first of all, because it doesn't really matter. They just get the best players, right? I'm just drawing a conclusion based on the obvious evidence right in front of your
You don't
face
think? Wait,
that there's 75% of the league is black, even though there's only 13% of them in the country.
do you
It's
realize
just
how
obvious.
like
It's right there in front of you.
do you realize how like anti-enlightenment you sound when you say, "Oh, the evidence is right in front
Why,
of your
why do
face"
I
when you're
care
trying to talk
about
about
enlightenment, dude?
genetics?
I'm just going by like the facts
You know,
and the
like,
statistics.
based on what you see right before you, right? Based on what you see right in front of you, the Earth is flat, right? You can't see the curve of the Earth. You can't like experience the curve of the Earth while standing on Earth, right? You understand how that works?
Right. I get what I know what you're getting at. That I can't prove it down to the freaking microscopic biological level. I can't pull this gene out and say, "Oh, this is why they're bad." But it's just obvious that they are. You just look at it. You just look at the numbers. I don't need that microscope and these studies and these graphs or whatever just to
Okay, well,
witness
I'm gonna
something
say
that's
that. So
objective reality, dude.
you're
It's
okay
right in
with
front of
me
your
saying
face.
that Nazis have a not like white people have a Nazi gene, you know? Because you look at all the Nazis, they're all white. It's obvious. Just
Yeah.
look at the data is right there in front of you.
Well, it wasn't 100% of them that were white, by
And
the way. There were black guys.
the industrial genocide gene. Okay, majorities, my friend. Yeah, the industrial genocide the industrial genocide gene. Yeah, it's very white. It's so white. The colonial rape and pillaging
Sure, and
gene.
I
It's
would
very white.
probably agree with that, but I wouldn't agree with it,
And the
like,
soccer
based
gene.
on moral factors. I would agree on that based on their capability at the time. I
And
mean,
what about the soccer gene?
what's the soccer gene?
You know that white people are overrepresented in soccer in America. You just see it with your very
Right, yeah,
eyes.
and I already answered that. It's
They're better at
probably
soccer
because
because of cultural
that
reasons.
that well, actually, what do you mean overrepresented in America in soccer?
Well, what's the I'm pre- what you know the average like how many Americans are white on the percentage of Americans are white. It's like
What is it,
69
like
something.
65%, 60?
Yeah, and
Something like that?
74% play soccer. 74% of soccer players are white,
Okay. So that's almost
overrepresented.
like that's much closer to the average than 13% of the population is 75% of the NBA,
No,
right?
we're talking about soccer though. We're talking about the white soccer gene, which I've just proven with the data that's right before our very eyes. Despite
I don't think you did prove it because
why
what
not?
was it, like 10 points? 10
That's an
points? So there's like,
overrepresentation.
10-point difference. That's not that much. I'm talking, mine is like 300 points difference, dude. It's 13% is 75%.
Okay, the Japanese judo gene.
All right, now you're getting ridiculous.
Why?
Come on.
Why is it
Or
any
how
more?
about the Japanese
Why?
sumo gene? That's better.
Why is that any more ridiculous than what you're saying?
Because mine goes off of a multicultural, multiracial country and looks at all of these, like, white people and black people both love basketball, both love the NFL, football, but yet one that's way underrepresented in the population is way overrepresented in professional players. That's the difference. Like, mine proves itself right in front of your face.
Well, if you see what I'm doing is I'm taking an international, so I'm taking a much broader sample and showing that actually white Americans are the most athletic because they're the best in the world at swimming. Everyone has water. You can get water wherever the fuck you want, but Americans, white Americans, they dominate swimming
Well, yeah,
over
maybe
the
that's
world.
something that European people are better at. Who knows?
Well,
They're
Americans.
more.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Americans. That's fine.
Yeah. So so somehow black people are more athletic because they play basketball, but white people are more athletic because they're better at swimming.
Yeah, sure. Maybe the way they're built or something. Who knows?
What?
I don't know, but I know for a fact that when I look at the NBA and and
I'm
it's
fucking
seventy
done.
percent
I
black,
can't.
I know
Okay.
it's because they have a genetic advantage, especially since they're only 13% of the population. It's obvious.
Yeah, and that's why white people have a genetic advantage in swimming, right? Because they're overrepresented. That's why Japanese people have a
Yeah, and plus, I don't
genetic
know.
advantage in judo.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I
a good thing
guess
we're using terms like athletic
also
because
black
it's
people like
broad, right? Even though these
basketball more
sports
than
tend to involve
swimming.
the usage of the same muscles and shit, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I will give it to you that black people enjoy basketball more than swimming. I mean, that's obvious to everyone. So
Mhm.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that point.
Thanks, dude. Pulling me out of the hole here.
Yeah.
You want to talk about intelligence?
Intelligence. Yeah. What do you got?
I think it's often very subjective how we measure it. It's very complex. The human brain is probably the most complex organism in the universe. We're just about figuring out how to find out genes that relate to things like height, whereas intelligence seems, I don't know, kind of messy, given also the fact that intelligence varies so much depending on how much education you get. Um, what do you
Sure, but
think?
do you know the intelligence quotient test is the best to try to gauge intelligence based on not on education and not on predisposed factors, but like just like your baseline intelligence, your your whatever your capacity to learn more quicker, whatever. That's what the IQ test was made for, basically.
Well, no, your IQ increases with education. The Flynn effect shows you that like 1 year of education, or it's either 1 year of education like increases your IQ by 5 points or something like that. Yeah, yeah. Education correlates
Right, but
very
but it's
strongly with
it's more
IQ.
it's a smaller increase than, let's say, somebody studying for an SAT exam, because that's mostly based on your knowledge of something. IQ tests try to measure like your capacity to learn more.
Um, Not entirely. No, that's
Well, no,
why
no, not
it's
entirely,
affected by
but I'm
education
saying
because it's
that
not.
that's the
No,
goal of the test.
education is the thing that increases your IQ by the most. Like that has the
Right. Well,
strongest
I didn't
correlation with
argue
IQ.
against that though. What I'm saying is that the IQ test, it's different from other like academic tests like the SAT, because the SAT you can study for and you'll get a way better grade than like just an IQ test, because an IQ test is more about like your intellectual capacity, like recognizing patterns and shit. Like it's not knowledge based. It's not like who was the first president of the United States. That's not an IQ test.
What exactly do you think they give you? Because I've done an IQ test like once. Like what exactly do you think they're testing you on? What do the tests involve? Just want to know what you think.
From what I've seen, it's a lot of pattern recognition, like basically that. So they're trying to take as much knowledge kind of variables out of it. They don't want to do like, oh, when was the Revolutionary War won? It's nothing about what you know. It's about how you figure stuff out,
Hmm. And
like pattern recognition.
how can your education change that if it's supposed to be your baseline intelligence?
Well, as you like study and stuff, your brain is going to get better at recognizing patterns
Yeah.
and shit like that.
And if
Yeah.
you're tired one day
And if you're tired, it'll probably
when
be
you do the
worse.
test, yeah. If you're
Sure.
malnourished,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Okay. If you're
Oh,
highly stressed on
malnourished.
the
Yeah.
day,
Okay.
yeah. If you don't
I
believe in
got you.
yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's the racial claim?
What is the racial claim?
Do you have
That
one?
some races on average have a higher IQ? Yeah,
Yeah. And why do you think that is?
because different races have different strengths and weaknesses.
Just
On
like
average, by the
built
way, on
in. Yeah.
average.
Okay. Okay.
Not all, on average, not all.
When you say races, I know you mean on average. It's okay. Like no one needs that
Okay.
clarified for them ever. It's okay. Don't worry.
Well, you won't believe
So,
how many people just say like, "Oh, you're saying all black people are dumb and all white people are smart." I mean, it's obvious that
well,
that's not
okay.
what I'm saying at
Yeah,
all. You know what I
it's
mean?
just that what you're saying is like just as stupid either way. It might as well
No,
be.
not at all. That's insane to think that.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
you look at
it
like
is. Yeah, it's pretty
why?
fucking.
No, it's not. Then well then tell me this: like why is every single invention that's ever been invented
Okay, look,
by a
we're
white
talking about
man? Why is
IQs. Wait,
that?
we're talking about IQs and genetics here. Okay, we can go with that. Okay,
Well,
we
yeah,
can.
I think like invention like correlates pretty highly with somebody's IQ. So yeah, I'll bring it back to inventions. Why is it that most inventions, most like serious world-changing inventions, are by white people, white
Like
men?
the agricultural revolution, which started in the Middle East and took 4,000 years
No, I'm
before it
talking
arrived in
more
like
like
Europe. Like
technological. I'm talking technological,
the
like
agricultural revolution involved
airplane,
technology. There was a lot of technology that
um,
happened in the
the
agricultural revolution.
telephone,
Okay.
electricity, plumbing.
So you're
You
going to
know, these
judge
world-changing
so you're going to
ideas.
judge
Why?
races.
How come every single one was invented by white people?
So you're going to judge we're talking about races here, right? Innate differences between races. And you're going to choose inventions from the last, what, 200 years? Like, we can talk about great divergence if you
Say it
want,
again. Well, no, it's not
but
200 years for like the aqueduct and shit, like water systems.
yeah, there were water systems that were invented independently in the Benin Empire as well. Sub Saharan Africa. Yeah. Okay.
Are they still running like the aqueduct is?
What do you mean? Are they still running? What?
Dude, what are you talking about?
What do
Are
you
they
mean? Are
still
they still?
functional right now?
What? The same ones that they
Like
built in the
hundreds of
fucking,
years
the
later.
same ones that they built in the medieval times. I'm pretty sure there's
Yes,
like,
the aqueduct and
okay, I'm pretty sure they can make like improvements and things like that since then.
so what is your argument that all races are exactly the same intelligence and they all could have invented all this stuff,
My
but just
point,
white people somehow with their racist evil white guy powers just did it first before everyone? Is that your argument?
my point is that we don't know. Like like it's very difficult
Okay,
to.
okay, that's fine.
It's
You can
very
say you don't
difficult.
know, but I can look at realities like that and just come to a conclusion that it's obvious. Just like
So
the NBA.
so you're choosing
It's dude, it's right
you're
there in
choosing a
front of you.
sample
You
from a
just don't want to
so
acknowledge it.
you're choosing a sample from. I feel like I acknowledged everything you said about the NBA. Don't worry. So yeah, each year of education increases your IQ by 5 points. Okay, and then there's all different kinds of variations around that. So the fact that you're
So
choosing
let me ask you
inventions.
this real quick. Like,
Wait,
how
wait.
come
I'm not done.
Africans
No,
didn't
I'm not done.
invent
I'm not done. I'm
education?
not done. I'm not done. I'm not done. Do you say the Africans didn't invent education?
Yeah, why is that? If it's all about education, why how come they
You don't
didn't
think
educate the
Africans
people?
had education below the Sahara Desert, independently of contact with Europe? And are you memeing? What do you think Africa looked like before colonists arrived?
Oh, it's probably like
Sub-Saharan.
Wakanda, Utopia, flying cars, flying
No, be serious.
spaceships.
Come on, you have the knowledge. You have the reality on
Dude,
your side.
I don't know what
What
you
did
want
it
me to
look
say,
like?
dude. I mean, you're saying it's all because of education, yet you're completely dismissing my fact that like every single invention that we have today is was invented by a white person, a white man.
Okay, that's not
So I don't know how you like how come a black man in Africa didn't invent all these great inventions?
okay. First of all, a lot of technological achievements long before they arrived in Europe to the pasty white people in Europe came from Mesopotamia and North Africa.
Oh,
Okay.
what like the airplane, like human flight, like electricity?
Okay, so now
Like
so
come on,
again,
dude.
why are you're trying to make a racial appeal, right? Which means it should be constant all the way throughout time. Okay? Constant. So why was technological advancement between Africa, the Middle East, Europe, more or less like on par for thousands and thousands of years? We can talk about the Great Divergence and when that happened, but that's a recent thing in human history. For most of human history, development started, say, in people, first of all, for most of human history, people were about the same. Hunter gatherers running around, that's most of human history. Then, about between 6 and 12,000 years ago, you have the agricultural revolution, which starts in Mesopotamia, starts to move into North Africa and then up to Europe. And then you have the Great Divergence, which doesn't happen until like what, 1500? So you're taking a very specific part, a very small part of human history,
Do you know why I'm
and
taking these
applying it to
specific parts though?
racial essentialism. Do you realize the problem there? Why the last
No,
500 years
there's not a problem
doesn't
there, and
tell
I'll
you
tell you
anything
why
about
I'm
the
doing it
genetics
is
of the
because
races.
we haven't really recorded history well until these recent like hundreds of years. Like you want me to like debate you on dude, well, 2,000 years ago, the Mesopotamians did this and no one else did anything else. And it's like, dude, they didn't they didn't have recorded history like we do today. Like, we couldn't just pin inventions on one dude like we can now.
If they didn't have recorded history, then how do we know that agriculture started in Mesopotamia before Europe? Do you know how archaeology works, right?
Yes, that's archaeology, though. Like, okay, tell me this.
Wait.
Who invented that agriculture in Mesopotamia?
Because
Who was it?
I don't need to know the
What was the
specific
guy?
person.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Why? What are you saying?
Accurate recorded history like we do today.
Oh, you think it's
Or,
all
like,
inaccurate. So
in
you
the
think
past, like 200, 300 years.
So do you think that Europe was like
Probably
always
500.
do you think that Europe was always ahead of like the Middle East and Africa then? Like even in like 12,000 years ago, were the
12,000
Europeans
years
more
ago, I'm
developed?
not too sure. I'm talking about, like,
No, you don't need to be not too
recent
sure. Like
history,
we know
probably.
this. Wait, what's recent history? How many years? Do you even know when the
Let's
Great
see.
Divergence
I'd
started?
probably
Like,
go back like 500-600 years. Like,
okay,
I don't
that's
know.
which is a very
Romans,
small
Greeks.
which is a very small part of human history. Wait, the Romans and Greeks were not 500 years ago.
No, I was adding that to the list.
Okay. Right.
I know they were fucking way before that, but
Yeah.
I was adding to the list, like, whatever. Go back however long that, like, single individuals were recorded.
Okay, so I feel like what would help your argument a bit better would probably be IQ tests, right? Because if you're trying to say that these differences are innate, racially innate, then Europe would always have been ahead of Africa and the Middle East. It wasn't, though. It was behind for thousands of years, not this 500-year bullshit that you're pulling on, like clinging onto for dear life because we invented telephones and shit. And not to mention, inventors
referencing things that, like, changed the entire world.
The
Not
only
like, oh,
also
so these guys made a little farm over here. You know, that's great, good for them.
no, the
But did they
agricultural
bring,
revolution
like,
was like the
flight
most.
to
The
the
agricultural
human race?
revolution
Did
was
they
the
bring
most valuable contribution to
automobiles
like human
the
history.
human race? Did they bring electricity, plumbing? Like, these are, like, revolutionary things.
A lot of these are
You're talking about,
a lot
like,
of these are a lot of these mathematical methods that are used to create these things come from Islam, right? Like the Islamic world.
Right, yeah, the whole algebra thing, sure.
What's your opinion on Arabic numerals, the Arabic numeric system?
I mean, it was awesome. Good for them that they invented that. Too bad, like, radical Muslims, like,
No, but too bad what?
their
Like,
history and
do you think we can do better than Arabic numerals?
Reverted back and went back in time and basically said, "Oh, now you must."
Look, okay, I don't worry. It's okay
nothing.
if you want to. You don't need to like cope about every fucking like talking point you're going on. It's okay. Don't worry. What I want to know is, okay, you're trying to talk about innate differences in intelligence, right? But you're talking about differences between Europeans and Africans and Asians and Africans that didn't really start until about 500 years ago, maybe 600 if you're being generous. And also, not to mention, like gunpowder, comes from Asia. Arabic numerals, we still use those. They were better than Roman numerals. Okay, contributions to algorithms
come from now.
Why?
Where did nuclear weapons come from?
Why are you choosing like just the things that the instruments of death? Okay, yeah, the white.
Sure,
that's the white. That's the white apocalyptic gene. The white apocalypse gene
is a better way to phrase it.
Well, gunpowder came from China, right?
Right. Well,
Okay.
what do they do with the gunpowder? Light it on fire, make some firecrackers? Like, I mean, Samuel Colt made it into an actual weapon used for domination.
They had weapons and they had like gunpowder weapons in China. Okay, don't worry. I don't need to watch you like try to clutch it.
Gunpowder, blow darts, or whatever. Yeah, that's cool. But
so, what's your point about IQ then? Do you not think it's a bit weird that you keep on claiming to have
about IQ?
I just think it's kind of weird that you claim to have arguments about genetics, but you never actually talk about genetics. Do you even know like what an allele is?
I already talked about genetics, dude.
No, you haven't. You've spoken about inventions.
Yes. Like I said, you can look just directly at the NBA and the NFL. There's like my best study I have for that. It's just blatantly obvious.
Okay.
And
then,
do
you feel like it's kind of weird that just like
thing,
looking at black people in your own country and one part of the world is like telling you about races. Races do not recognize borders, my friend. Black people are everywhere. Asians are everywhere. White people are everywhere. The fact that you're clinging onto the
best example because they're all together in one place. Do you not understand that? Like, that's your perfect freaking sample size right there.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
you
okay.
choose to ignore it because it confirms
When did I ignore the
assertion.
NBA? I feel like I've engaged pretty well with every point you've made on the NBA. Like, have I ever ignored the
You just
existence of the
keep
NBA?
having these like, well, what about this? What about the whole world? Dude, I just gave you the perfect example. And you're like, well, no, that's probably like cultural and stuff. Sorry, that doesn't work. And it's like, dude, it's
Where do you think
a perfect example.
why did you lie about the first firearm being invented by white people? Firearms.
I didn't say the first firearm was
Just the
invented by white
revolver.
people. I said Samuel Colt made the first gun, the first
No, that's not
multiple
the first.
shot
No, that's not the first gun.
firearm. What's that?
Oh, the first fire. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Never mind. But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the fire lance and the cannons. Yeah, that came from China, right? Okay.
Cannons are China, yeah.
Okay. So, do you see the problem is that you keep on trying to make claims about genetics and then you just go, oh, well, but white people invented telephones. Like, that's not talking about genetics, is it?
Well, it is.
No, it's how?
It is because it's so overwhelmingly white. It's so overwhelmingly pasty ass white guys.
So, why wasn't
you
that
like
the
to
case
put
for
it,
all of human
that
history?
it literally invented everything.
So, why
I
wasn't
mean,
that the case for
basically
all?
everything.
Okay, first of all, I think you're maybe over exaggerating the extent of contributions to when it comes to event. That's fine. That's fine. I know you've got. I know you like your fucking telephone and your revolver. Okay. Yeah, I know you've got.
You
Okay,
know,
I don't need you to.
planes,
I don't need you to run down
plumbing,
your. Look, I don't need you to.
multiple story homes. I mean, come on.
Multiple story homes are not exclusively from white places. Do you think?
Skyscrapers? Huh?
Okay, you've had to move from multiple stories to skyscrapers. Okay.
That's what I was thinking, but I'm not as quick witted as you. So
It's okay.
I was like, let's see, multiple skyscrapers. That's it.
Okay.
Electricity.
Are pyramids not multi-story?
Democracy, LonerBox.
You think democracy was invented by white people?
Who was democracy invented by?
Hunter-gatherers were democratic.
So where is that in recorded history? Is it written on a rock somewhere in like sheep's blood?
No, we have archaeology
I'm talking about
for those
democracy
things.
written down.
What? Just because someone put a word to it? Is that the thing that impresses you?
Yeah, we're gonna have to go to like recorded history and not like some.
So the thing is, I'm just wondering, like, do you actually have any claims about genetics or like IQ, or are you just gonna say, oh, inventions? Like, is that all you've got?
Inventions, yes.
Okay. That's your proof of genetics. How do you explain IQ gaps within white populations?
Well, like I said, it's on average. It's not all.
No, like
It's
really big, like
there's
really
really
big
dumb
ones.
white people.
No, not just smart and dumb white people. I mean IQ gaps within subsets of white populations. So in South Africa,
there's like a famous. I don't know who did this quote, but there's more variation, like inside the races than of the races. Like, have you ever heard that one? Like,
there's more variance inside the races than. No, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you about different cultural groups that are white, even in the same environment. So, say in South Africa in the 1950s, the Boer population, the Dutch descended ones, had an IQ score of 15 points on average less than the white urban population. These two groups were both white, both European. They had a 15-point IQ difference on average.
okay.
Why do you think that was? That's a 15-point difference between white groups. Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. Well, yeah, some groups of whites could be smarter than other groups. Like, I'm pretty sure that like the Japanese.
So wait, do you think
there's some Asians like the Japanese?
No,
have
you can go to
like,
wait, let's just try and stay on one point here. Let's just try and stay on one point, okay?
Well, I'm trying to explain it that way. Like, I'm not saying that just it's all white people. But on average,
this is white.
You lump all those white people in.
This is white Europeans, okay? So this is this is genetics. We're doing we're learning about
right. But like
IQs
I said,
here.
you can still have differences between two different groups of white people. Like I just said, there's differences in different groups of Asians.
So do you think this is innate? Do you think that's what I'm trying to ask you? Stop cutting me off, okay? I'm trying to ask you if this is an innate difference between Dutch and British descended white people in South Africa. These are these countries are very close to each other as well. Northern Europeans, two Northern European populations had an IQ difference of 15 points on average.
Okay, so I think I understand the question you're asking. I don't think like all IQ discrepancies have to do with genetics, but like
Up to
when you
15
look at the
points?
grand scheme of things,
The people
you
living there
can
thought that.
deduct genetics from that because
No, wait, why?
like different
Why not?
races
Why not?
do differently,
Because
do
back then,
worse or better on average.
because
Yes.
back then, if you were a white British descended South African, you might very well have thought that the Boers were just genetically a bit dumber. Why not? Like you've got a 15-point difference.
Well,
Why
maybe they
not?
were. We don't know.
Genetically, why did the difference go away?
I have no idea.
It's
Like,
almost
you're
as
bringing
if
all this
these
like shit up
differences
that
are not genetically innate.
about, and you're like, well, why does this do this? It's like,
Well, what I'm wondering is
don't-
because I took an IQ difference.
South Africa. Come on.
Because I took an IQ difference of 15 points between white populations, you suddenly become very hesitant to say that it's to do with genetics.
No, it could be. No, I said it could be genetic. Yeah. Why?
It took
wouldn't-
you a
why
very
couldn't
long.
It be?
It took you a very long time to get there. So you think there's an innate
I
genetic
think
IQ difference between
I admitted
Dutch
that at
and
the
English
beginning.
people?
I'm like, yeah, it could be a genetic difference.
Really?
It could be.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it could be the case. This is what you're giving me right now.
Yes.
It could be the case that English and Dutch people have an innate IQ difference of 15 points.
Yes.
Dude,
Why couldn't it be?
you're really fucked up.
Because
The Westphalia system was earlier than the Industrial Revolution.
You don't believe that any two different groups of people could ever have like a different outcome with an IQ test, right? Like on average, you just think that's like impossible.
When have I ever said that? I will say that right now. This is the difference between you and me, right? Because I'm not a coward. Different ethnic groups and different racial groups will score different on average in IQ tests.
What do you mean I'm a kid? Dude, I've already fucking admitted a bunch of shit. Like the reason that so many black people play basketball is because they like it. It's in their culture. I admitted that, so don't call me a fucking coward, dude.
I said it's in their culture as well. Wait, what? That's exactly what I said. I said it's in their culture. I said that as well. You just said it's in their
you
culture.
made the claim and I agreed with it. So don't call me a fucking coward. I'll fucking debate anything with you. Just come on. I'm not being a fucking coward. What is that bullshit about?
Well, I'm just wondering why you're just like so now you've actually just gone with the idea that you're okay to suggest that British people have an average innate IQ difference of 15 points. Despite the fact that that difference,
yes.
okay, why? That doesn't
you
exist
mean,
anymore though,
why?
because education narrowed that down, and obviously, well, they changed the IQ test as well. That's another thing that we can get into, but like, it just okay. So why is there not any concern about?
Dude, like I said, you brought something up that I have no knowledge of, so I have no idea where you're like bringing.
You have
this
no
up
knowledge
from,
of quite a lot of
you
things
know what
we've
I mean?
spoken
Like,
about so far.
You expect me to like elaborate on this shit that I have no idea about?
Well, you
know
were
what I'm
happy
saying?
to talk about like African inventions and shit like that. So, and you don't know anything about that either. So it's okay.
Well, I
Don't
know
worry
that
about
most
diving into what we don't know
inventions
about.
That like changed the earth, the globe, were by Africans. I know that.
Yeah, it's a shame that that difference can't be demonstrated across more than a few hundred years of human history, which lasted like hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
I don't know what you even mean by that.
Because
The car was
you're
just
trying.
invented like in the last
I know
150 years.
because you're trying to say that
plane
the
also,
difference is
the last
innate.
100
Because you're trying to say the difference is innate to the races. How can it be innate?
What do you mean by that, innate?
As in, like, it's embedded. It's like it's just there. It's just genetically. It's just the way they always were. They always will be.
Like every single individual on this earth have like an embedded genetic predisposition to do certain things.
I'm not
And
asking.
when you expand that on average, like between the races, obviously there's going to be discrepancies. There's going to be differences. There's going to be strengths and weaknesses. I don't understand how that.
Then why?
That
Because
like, people are different, dude.
But you're applying it to. Okay, first of all, that's a very simplified view of how genes work. But anyway, because we actually like as not that you care what actual biologists have to say, but how much genes influence human behavior, we know barely anything about. We know nothing about.
Do you
This
know
is like one of the most complex.
discoverer of the double helix? He actually said that there's differences between the IQs of different races.
What? How long ago is this? It's almost as if scientists can be like good at one thing and bad at other things. Yeah. How long ago did
Well,
this
yeah, well,
person discover
obviously
the double helix?
they're reevaluating now because we live in a culture where you're not allowed to recognize differences at all.
You are absolutely allowed to. People, you just haven't looked, but biologists study this all the time. The reason you don't look at that is because it doesn't give you the answer that you want. When people look at
Well,
genetic influences on IQ between races, they find out that the difference, if any, is like negligible. There's like nothing there that you can connect like an innate genetic predisposition to high or low IQ. There's just not like it's basically all environmental when it comes to IQ.
okay, so this can come around to like maybe crime rates in the United States.
No, okay. So see how you just had to move away, like because the biology
Well, no,
doesn't agree
well,
with
like
you.
you just said that we don't know, and like they're well, I'll never be able to prove it down to the genetic code that black people are superior at basketball in the United States. You're just never gonna believe that. It's just, you know what I mean. So what else can I say? How am I gonna how am I gonna win an argument that you're not open to?
I don't know. You
You know
can
what I mean?
follow.
So
You
that's
can
why I
just
was trying
you
to
can
move
just
away to
explore the
something
science. I mean,
else.
there. I mean, because even like if you tried a little bit harder, it's just I suppose like to do your inventing, to do your like uh your highly sophisticated inventing forefathers proud, to do the great inventors proud, you could have actually just looked for some research on this because there are people who claim to have found intelligence increasing alleles and all this bullshit. You could have tried to find that if you want, but you
What
haven't.
did
You've
they
just
find?
some fucking like Nazi scientist from the 30s said that he found more like intelligence alleles in white people. But yeah, it turned out to be bullshit. But yeah, that's
Okay.
okay.
People
So
are allowed to be wrong too, dude.
yeah, I know they're allowed to be wrong. That's why people, but why do you keep saying like, I don't know why you guys keep saying that this is a topic that people are scared to explore because biologists study race and IQ and genetics all the time. There's so much research you can find on this. The reason you guys don't cite it is because it doesn't support what you say. That's why you have to just back off and say,
Well, it
"Oh,
did support
basketball
what I
players,
what I said, like
telephones,
back when the
airplanes."
bell curve and shit came out.
What did the bell
But
curve
then,
prove?
like, obviously, there's revisionist history where, oh shit, we were like way too racist by saying that different races have different IQs. So let's like walk that back and say that like there's no differences at all between IQs and different races and stuff. So
What did the
yeah,
bell
I
curve
understand
prove?
that science has gotten progressively progressive,
What did the bell curve
but
prove?
that doesn't mean that it's true now. That's
What,
like, oh, sorry, all that everything they said was wrong. We were racist. Sorry, guys. And you know what I mean?
so
Like
they think the
it's
white
it's
scientists are
just they're
lying.
trying to get with the times of this like, oh, we can't talk about this. That's racist. We can't talk about that. It's racist.
Do you think it's very convenient that any like scientific information that goes against you is like it's just because of they're just trying to be not racist or whatever?
Well, yeah, I,
Like
I definitely think
you're actually
that's a
an
big
impossible
element of
yeah,
that.
you have an out for everything then. Every piece of information I put your way has to be like
Well,
every like scientific
well, you didn't
evidence
really
that
put
exists.
any
Like
information my way. Give me some information then. Like, is there a study that says there's literally no difference in IQ between the races?
that's not the claim are you actually like listening to what a single word I'm saying?
No, but that was the claim that was put forth in like the bell curve, for example.
Yes.
Now,
Okay, no,
do you
that's
have a
not what the
study
bell curve
that
said.
says the opposite
Wait,
now?
what did the bell curve say?
That
What do you think the
there's
bell curve
differences in
showed?
IQ of the races on average?
The bell curve did not introduce that concept. That concept already existed.
It already existed, but it expanded on that.
In what
It did
way?
like an
In what
entire
way?
book on it. It's like one of the biggest books cited
No, I know,
on that
and
exact
I
topic.
know it
That's what I'm
is.
saying.
I know
Like,
it
do
is,
you
and
have
I
the
know what the bell curve says.
antithesis of
Okay,
that? Do you have the like the revisionist history of
I
that?
don't have the revision. The bell curve. Okay, the bell curve was not. It was not even
You're just
controversial.
saying now that, oh, that
Can you
actually
let me
is all
finish a single?
bullshit.
Are you
All
okay?
right, go ahead. Sorry,
Okay,
I
you're getting
didn't know you were talking.
you're very excitable. It must be a genetic
I
thing.
think you're a little excitable too, buddy. Go ahead.
I'm just matching your energy.
All right, I
So
got you.
the bell curve did not introduce the concept that different racial groups score different on IQ tests. This was a very well-known thing before the bell curve, okay? This has been known for
Sure, but that's
decades
like the
and
most famous
decades.
example I could think of. But
It's the
go
okay,
ahead. Sorry.
okay, that's fine. So, what did they contribute to that discussion? I know what they said. I'm just wondering if you do.
Well, they did studies on like IQ tests in Africa and IQ tests in America between the races within the same country also.
And what did they find out that was
Well, I
new?
think they cited that the author of the book said it was probably 60% genetic and 40% environmental.
You think it said it was 40% genetic and 40%
No.
environmental?
60%.
60%. Okay, you think it said it was 60? Okay.
Didn't it? Or did it not? I don't know.
Okay.
Did you look it up?
No. It also like yeah, so that's
So yeah,
the bit that
where
they
is
said
your
they
book
claimed
that
to
says,
contradict.
"Oh, the bell curve was bullshit" by LonerBox? Where is that? Where is that study? Where is that like book? That's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Because you said, "Oh no, that's all bullshit," but then you didn't really give me any evidence that it is bullshit.
Yeah, I can send you this study from Nature.
Study from Nature.
To be honest, we can just go
Bullshit.
back. We can just go back to talking about how Africans didn't have wheels if you want.
Did I ever say that?
No, I'm joking. But you said
Okay.
something more or less
Oh,
like
because you
similar
got that
to it.
little like Nick Fuentes spinning wheel with his head in it.
I love the spinning
It's pretty
wheel.
funny, actually. So yeah, like I think like the biggest reason why people talk about this now is because we're getting a bunch of like rhetoric that, oh, the reason that uh, black people are disproportionately represented in prisons is
Mhm.
because America is just racist. And then people are like, well, hold on a sec. All of America's racist, so that's why like black people are doing way more crimes than everyone else.
What do you think they mean when they say the country's racist?
Systemically racist.
What do you think that means?
The magical words.
What do you think that means?
So can you tell me how the country is systemically racist? Because I'm pretty sure we got rid of that back in like Jim Crow era. Oh no, but redlining and this and that. No.
No, Jim Crow is
How
not.
come
Jim
how
Crow
come they're
is
so
Jim Crow. Jim
disproportionately
Crow is not
represented
systemic
in like
racism.
violent crime and murder and
Jim
shit?
Crow
Like,
would be like legally inscribed race. That's different from systemic racism. That these are not the same
well,
thing.
systemic racism refers to disparate outcomes between the races, which doesn't necessarily mean anyone's being racist.
Yeah.
It just means that certain races are doing better or worse.
Because.
And you want to like find this thing like, oh, it must be the system. But maybe it's just
like,
people are different.
Yeah,
right?
Because there are
average.
differences that like, even when you have like similar behavior from the groups, like say weed smoking, which black people do at like 4 times, which black people are arrested for at 4 times the rate of white people, even
Well, that's
though they
because they're
smoke
in
at the same
neighborhoods
amount.
that are patrolled more
Okay.
because they have higher violent crime.
Okay, yeah. So the neighbor. Okay, let's go down this line. Okay, this will be the last point. Okay, and we'll do something else. So they're in a neighborhood where there's more crime. Okay, but the black people who are getting arrested, the black people who are getting arrested for smoking weed are, they're getting arrested for smoking weed. Okay, they're not doing the violent crime. They're getting arrested for weed smoking.
Right, because there's more people. There's more police there to witness their crime.
Yeah. So
there's more.
That
there's
means
more like eyes to see it.
If you're black,
or noses to smell
eyes
it,
and noses,
whatever.
more eyes and noses. I know. Okay, I watch this, some of the same content you do. Don't worry. So what you just described to me there was a situation where a black person and a white person can both behave in the same way, smoking weed, but one of them will be more likely to be arrested for it through no fault of his own. As an individual,
no fault of his own, but it is the fault of his community that there's more police there.
Okay,
it's not the fault of white people that he's arrested more for that. It's the fault of his own community for having a higher crime rate, violent crime rate. Because if there wasn't that, before you crime rate, then the police wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Okay. I know. So what you just described then is someone who is more likely to get policed, not because of anything he did in the country of individualism and, be the best you and American dream and all that shit. As an individual, he's getting over policed, not because he did something different, but because people who look.
I mean,
because
the law
people,
is the law. If he breaks the law, then that's.
Okay, but like if you're white and you smoke weed, you're basically
it's not like
safe,
if a white kid was in that exact same area, he wouldn't get caught for it too.
Okay, I know, but he's not. But
so it
he's
has
not.
nothing to do with his individual race.
But he's not in that area though. The white person's not on average going to be in that area. Okay.
Correct, because white areas don't have as many police because there's not as high a crime rate.
So what you're describing then is an individual who is getting more likely to face the consequences of a crime, like smoking weed, because of the actions of other people who look like him.
Hello?
Hello?
You could, yeah, you cut out. Like, what was
So
the last part you
even
said?
if we
Sorry.
take what you're saying, and I agree, they are more likely to be arrested because they live in a community where there's more crime and the police go there because there's more crime, more violent crime. But
Right.
that means that the fact that he's getting more likely to face arrest for smoking weed is not because of anything different he did to a white person smoking weed, but because of the actions of other people who look like him.
Right.
That
But
would be
like,
system.
how do you solve that though? Because like I said, like let's say the police were in the air, like white people get arrested for it too. They're not as arrested as likely because there's not as many police
Mhm.
patrolling their area, because they don't need as many police, because violent crime isn't happening in their area.
Okay, and
Like it's like a problem that, how would you fix that problem? Let me ask you that. How would you fix that problem?
ending the drug war for one, because I feel like if you're there to police violent crime, you should be there looking for violent crime and not just incidentally arresting weed smokers in the process.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of it is incidentally like that. Like they'll show up to like whatever, an
Well, that's the
assault or
point in it being
robbery,
systemic
and then
racism. I think,
guy's like
okay,
smoking a joint, and then he'll get arrested for that, or they'll pull someone over. Like you just think that it's like, oh, they're going around and looking for black teenagers to bust. No, dude, they're there because there's the violent crimes in those areas are are much more than in white areas.
yeah,
So they're needed there.
so what you just, okay, the police are needed there, but the police are not needed to arrest people for smoking weed. Like, not really, right?
Well, I don't believe in that law, by the way. Like, I think weed like should be legal, but I'm not gonna go like end the drug war. Like, you know how many people are die of opiate overdoses in the United States every year?
That's a
It
very
just reached
different drug war.
100,000.
That's a very different drug war to, that's a very, very different drug war to smoking weed, all right? Opium,
No, no,
like
but
opioids is
I
like
agree
big
with you. I think
pharma and
that
shit,
law is
isn't it?
stupid.
Mm.
However, it's a law, and you're citing this like, oh, well, they broke the law and they're arrested, and that's systemic racism. Well, no, it's the law. Like
No,
anybody of
that's
any
not
skin
the.
color
Hey, look,
will get
do
arrested
you not
for
believe that we're
smoking
all
weed.
equal in the eyes of the law? Do you not think people should have, like, as an American, you know, a red-blooded,
Well, they are
God-fearing
equal in the
American?
eyes of the law.
Well, they're not, because one group is being overly
That's
represented in
because
the
the
criminal
police
justice
are
system
there,
for
dude.
doing
What
the
are you
same
not getting
crime.
about that? It's not
That's
like they're saying like, oh, we got to go get all these black kids that are smoking weed.
okay.
They're in high crime
Yeah,
areas,
yeah.
high violent
Mhm.
crime areas, and then they happen to catch people who are smoking weed, and it's against the law to smoke the weed.
That's great. That's you just, like, again, you just made an argument in favor of the fact that systemic racism exists because these are two people,
How is that
like,
racist though? It's like you'll get arrested for smoking weed anyways, even if you
at
are
a
white in
high
that area.
no, at
It
a
has
higher
nothing to do with
rate.
the color of the perp's skin.
Even though, okay, you just said that they're in a community that has more crime and that's why the police go there. So yes, that is to do with race. That's to do with racial profiling of crime. Yes.
Well, not necessarily. It doesn't have to do with race. It has to do with the crime in the area. It just so happens that most crime is committed by black people.
And typically, as a, you know, I would imagine as a red-blooded, God-loving American, you would probably say that you'd like to live in an America where everyone who smokes weed has an equal chance of getting arrested. No?
Well, how would that happen if like a white kid lives in an area where police aren't needed? So do you think police should just they should be across the board the same no matter how high the crime is in a
Wait,
certain area?
there are arguments for changing proportions. Not exactly the same, no. But their problem
Right.
there is
So
the problem
not
with the
exactly, even that conceding that point, then how are white kids ever going to reach the same level as black kids smoking weed
well,
if the police
that's why
aren't in
we
those areas as much?
that's why we
You know what
call
I'm saying?
it
You're saying it's systemic racism, but it's literally just how the law works
that's
and
why
how
we
like
call
reality
that's
works.
why we call it systemic racism. And I don't know why this is so hard for you to concede because it's actually saying that you're making the exact point. You're basically saying, like, there's no difference between the definition of systemic racism and what you're saying. Not really.
But what policy, what system is against the black person in that scenario?
The policy is of policing a neighborhood because there's a high crime rate, but then also
That's not racist.
but
That's
then
just freaking common
I
sense,
haven't
dude.
finished. but then also adding in and just letting it letting it be a case that other people who commit crimes that are less severe having more attention
So
paid to
should we
them
not? We should
in the
just not
process.
arrest people for crimes then,
Smoking weed?
because
Fuck no.
well, no, I agree with that, but I'm just telling you the reason.
Yeah, and the reason is systemically racist. Yeah.
How is that racist? It's based on statistics. It has nothing to do with the color of anyone's skin.
Wait,
We've
just
already been
because
over this.
just
That
because
has nothing to
something's
do with racism.
just because something's based on crime statistics doesn't justify it.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's a disparate outcome that affects a race disproportionately, so you automatically call it racist,
Wait, so
even though
so
it's all about the action.
if in like the UK or even I think in New York, when they increase stop and frisk because of the crime statistics and they increase stop and frisk on black people, you think that's justified because of the crime statistics. But then what if, as it's the case with stop and frisk, they don't, it doesn't, racial profiling does not increase them finding the chance of them finding what they're looking for. Have you know that? Did you know about that in New York and England?
Yeah, stop and frisk laws and shit.
Yeah, the way
Yeah,
that
I
racial
don't know, but
profiling does not increase a police officer's chance of finding what he's looking for, but they still do it, which would be another
like
example of
what?
systemic racism. There are quite a lot of ways you can go into this. You can go into like the death penalty and studies related to that, or yeah, you can go quite far with it. But but I don't need to. Like you just gave me one example. You told me that a black person living in America is more likely to be arrested for smoking weed, despite what he's doing, is no better or worse than what his white counterpart in the
Because
country
he's
would
more
do.
likely to be in a high crime
I don't
area that
care
has
about.
more
I'm
police.
not.
Yes,
That's
correct.
that's yeah. So that's an example of
So how
systemic
is that
racism.
racist? You still haven't proven to me that it's racist. You just said, well, black people get arrested more for it. But that
Because
doesn't prove it's racist. It just proves that they
what do
live in
you
higher crime areas
wait?
with more police
What do you
to
think I mean
witness
by
their
systemic
crime.
racism? What do you think I mean by systemic racism?
I already told you what I think you think it means. Any
Wait,
disparate outcome between the races, it's automatically the system's fault and has nothing to do with the actions of that particular group. That's what you think it means.
that's not what systemic racism means.
Well, then you tell me what it is then.
Systemic racism can be a system like the criminal justice system operating in a way where no one intends to, where there's no explicit intent, but is affecting black and white people in different ways proportionate to what they
Yes,
do.
that's
Proportionate
exactly
to what
I
they
said.
do. But the black people who smoke weed are not smoking weed in a worse way than the white people are, but they're more likely to get arrested for it. That is a racialized
You're
outcome.
leaving out the whole part about they're in a higher crime area.
I don't need to
The
leave
only
that
way
part
that
out.
works,
That
the only
part
way that
out doesn't justify people getting arrested for smoking weed more
if you
often.
leave out that last part. You know what I'm saying?
No, you can completely include that. I've never backed off of that
All right, then
idea.
completely say it again and completely include because they because they are in higher crime areas with more police.
Yeah, if you're in a higher crime area with more police,
So
but
that
you're
doesn't mean
committing a
it's
crime that
systemically
is no less
racist. It's
severe.
systemically anti-criminal, maybe. Sure. Because they wanna police areas with higher crime rates. Yeah, of course. It just makes sense.
Do you think black and white people in America have an equal right as Americans to smoke weed without getting bothered by the police?
Well, yeah, I think it should be legal anyways.
No, but at the moment, do you think they have an equal right to smoke weed as they please without getting bothered by the police? Do you think they have an equal right to do that?
Yeah, sure. Of course they do.
But black people get arrested 4 times more. How do they have an equal right to do it?
Well, neither of them have the right to do it. I think they should.
I know. I'm
But
just talking about.
it's
I'm talking
against the
about
law
on a.
for both races, dude.
I'm talking about on a spectrum, though, right? So, like, white people have a bit more of a right, because they're not as likely to get arrested for it, right? They have a bit more
Well,
of
they
a
don't-
right.
No, they have the same exact right. It's
Okay,
just if
if
they
I
don't
changed
get
right
the
to the
police because the
ability,
police
all
don't
right?
happen to be in their neighborhood,
If I
then
changed
that's
right to
just
like freedom.
because police are in higher crime neighborhoods.
So if
That's
I changed,
the only reason. That has nothing to do with systemic racism or anything.
so if I change the word right to the freedom, if they have the freedom to smoke, do white and black people have the equal levels of freedom to smoke weed without being
Like I
arrested?
said, neither of them have the freedom to.
I said, do they?
It's against the law for no matter what your race is.
Okay, like it's against the law
in
to
certain areas.
it's against the law to smoke weed in the UK, but I have the freedom to do it. Like, come on, no one's gonna bother me for smoking weed. I can walk past a fucking cop
Right, and do you
blazing in
live
his
in a high
face.
crime rate area?
It doesn't matter if I do in the UK, to be honest.
I don't want to like dox you or anything, but I'm just saying like that's just like a
I'm not asking you
you know
about
what I'm
whether
saying, right?
that's why whether or not they live in a high crime area. Whether
So
the
do you
reason of
think
it
it's
isn't what the point
plausible
though.
that if you
I'm
live in a
asking
higher
you,
crime rate area that you'll get stopped for more things because there's more people, more police to
yeah,
see you doing your
I've
crimes?
never denied that. Why do you think I'm
But
denying
that's
that?
all I've said.
But that
That's
would
all I've
mean,
said, and it has nothing to do with race and all about the crime rate.
but if I grew up in that community by virtue of like my racial makeup, because these communities are segregated, right? Then yeah, I would say that
For the most part, yeah.
I would say that I have less of a freedom to smoke than white people do, despite the law being the same. Can you not own that?
No,
Can you not own the fact that
I
black
don't
people
agree
are
with
less
that.
free to
No,
smoke weed in America without getting
I
bothered by
don't
the
agree with
police?
that because white people living in high crime areas have the same rights or the same freedom as a black person living in that same area.
But we're just talking about white and black people as a whole, right? Because we're talking about race, not about crime areas. We're
Well,
talking
no,
about race.
I'm
We're
talking
measuring by
specifically
race.
about crime rate because
Why?
that's the reason that they're caught more for the same thing.
But why? What? So if you have a reason for it, why is it difficult for you to own that statement then?
I just did own it.
What?
Well,
So
I'm just
white
saying
people
it's
have more
not
freedom to smoke weed in
systemically
America than black
racist
people
because
do.
it has nothing to do with the race and all about the crime rate.
So it's nothing to do with the race, but
Right.
black people, the
So a
racial
black
group of
person
black
in a
people,
white neighborhood, he's not going to get arrested the same as a black person in a black neighborhood just because of the crime rates, right?
black person
So
in a white
would a black
neighborhood.
person living in a low crime rate white neighborhood have more freedom than a black person living in a black high crime rate
You are
neighborhood?
tying yourself so hard in knots here to avoid the
I'm
fact
not, dude, because
that
it proves what I'm saying.
it's
That
harder.
the
It's
black
like
person
harder
in the
to
white
smoke weed
neighborhood
without
has
getting bothered by
more
the police.
freedom, according to you, than the black kid in the black neighborhood. Now, why is that? I mean, they're the same race.
That's
Shouldn't
why
it be
I'm.
systemically racist
That's
against
why
them?
I'm controlling it by race.
What?
That's why I'm. That's why I'm controlling it by race. I like it that this is like one really. We could have even gone into like stop and searches or like traffic stops, but no, like
Dude, I don't even know what you're saying. You're controlling it by race. It's
yeah,
not by race. It's
I'm
by the
asking.
area.
I'm
The
asking you
area is the entire variable right
areas
there that
that
you have to
are
change.
racially more rough, like kind of racially segregated.
No, crime rate, yes.
Okay,
It has nothing to do with a black area. If there was a black area that had like the lowest crime rate in America, police wouldn't be policing that area. It has nothing to do with the race of the area. It has
okay.
everything to do with the crime in the
I
area.
like how a lot of these things have so much to do with race until it's a claim that you're uncomfortable owning. When it's the NBA, it's all about race. When it's genetic, when it's inventions, it's all about
Well,
race. But
yeah,
now
because
when
that's
it's about,
genetic,
but now when
obviously,
it's obviously, but now when it's
and
about,
it's disproportionate too.
but now when it's about the right to smoke weed without being bothered by the police, it's nothing to do with race, even though the races are
Well,
differently represented. It's
black
okay.
people commit more
Maybe
crimes,
next
so
time,
yeah.
okay, that's systemic racism. It's okay. Listen, take care. I love you. Holy shit. Fuck me. How long did that go? Oh God. Oh, what a fucking guy. I'll have him on again. He's like a fucking target practice, you know? Who was that? That was a chatter. He's in chat. Yeah, come on, Soak Done Left. Let's do some research. Oh, do I just call you on Discord? Or do you want to come into my Discord, into the waiting room? Because you've got the content creator role. Yeah, you're in my Discord, right? You see the waiting room? Yeah, just come in my Discord because I'm already in the room. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
You're super quiet for me. One moment. Hey, what's up?
Now? Hello?
Yeah, can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. How's it going?
Pretty good.
I thought that wasn't going to go on for an hour. That man
Did it
was
go on for
allergic
an
to
hour?
Buddha.
It went on a bit longer. I thought, yeah, God.
Well, so I guess I guess there were two things that I wanted to mention. One fun historical fact is that the early basketball leagues were actually dominated by Jewish people, and I can send you an article about how newspapers were writing about how like the deviousness of Jewish people gave them an unfair advantage in basketball, like really insane racialist crap.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like it. Everyone's been bigoted about basketball for like a century now, so it sucks.